And I am so excited about our next speaker, and she is our final presenter, and that is Holly Jackson. She's a licensed professional counselor. Holly is in private practice with her business partner at the Center for Change. Holly knew from a very early age that she came into this world with a heart to move toward people rather than away from people who had emotional pain. And as we all discover, life can bring a lot of unexpected difficulties. Through her own experiences, Holly gained the gift of suffering and surviving the suffering to discover beauty and freedom on the other side of that pain. And as a single mother, Holly has been through the pain of divorce and the traumatic and unexpected death of a child, as well as parenting the living child that has lost a sibling. She understands the trials and tribulations of motherhood through many, many lessons. She loves being a mother to her tween daughter and was recently remarried to a wonderful man. She believes that no one is immune to suffering, but together with the tools of communication, people can discover strength they need, the strength not to know, the strength they did not know they had. She lives by the motto that every person has inherited what is inherited to worth and value, and her purpose in life is to help others to get free from the things that has previously crushed them. And so, amen, Holly. All I got to say is amen to that beautiful message. And with that, Miss Holly.
Hi, my name is Holly Jackson, and I have a private practice here in the greater Jackson area, and it's Center for Change. I am here to talk to you about mental health and specifically postpartum depression. What is postpartum depression? It's depression that goes on, it can start during pregnancy and occurs after the pregnancy longer than 2 weeks. For the first about 10 days to 2 weeks after pregnancy, it's real common to have what people refer to as the baby blues. So that's a very, very common experience, and it's not as severe as postpartum with regard to how low you get, and partially because it's over before 2 weeks, and so the suffering is not lasting that long. But when it is longer than 2 weeks, it's important to call a doctor because postpartum depression can be very serious. And there are many contributing factors to postpartum depression that we can look at as a preventative during your pregnancy. So y'all, I'm nervous, so forgive me. Okay, I'm gonna start over again. When you're pregnant, there are so many narratives that come your way about what you should experience and what it will be like for you as a pregnant woman and then as a mom. And often, a lot of it's very one-sided. So it's either very positive or doom and gloom. And that narrative that we hear from other people influences us, whether we believe it or not. Even if we consciously know, okay, life has all sorts of moments in it. And so, of course, there will be a beautiful gift in my child. And there are going to be moments all the way from this moment of pregnancy forward that are very hard and difficult to navigate, anxiety provoking, overwhelming. Parenting triggers a lot of insecurity in a lot of people. And so that brings issues up that people that are in their adult years have not even thought about since often their teen years. So what can we do to protect ourselves? First things first, ask yourself the question, how often do I think about self-care? Many females don't think about it all that often, especially here in the South. I mean, I guess it's especially here in the South. I live in the South, so I kind of assume that it's, but I don't know. It might not be so regional or so specific to the South. But because often we're outward focused, looking outside of ourselves to see what needs to be done and who needs to be cared for, it's easy to just continue along that path. However, if you don't almost budget in, like if you're budgeting your time and energy, you need to budget in care for yourself because no one else can do it. Only you can really ensure that you are well cared for. What does that look like? That looks like prioritizing your sleep, trying to get the best rest you can during pregnancy and after, which the best rest you can get will be interrupted and not as much as you want, more than likely. And they're just, but as much as possible, if you will prioritize sleep, exercise, and play is very important. Connection, and an overall just awareness of your body. That is a beginning with self-care. If you already engage in self-care, that's great. If you don't, if you can start during pregnancy, carving out some time for yourself and having conversations with the people that you're close to in your life, saying, I know that there are lots of changes that are going to come into my life as I have this child, and I'm not sure what it's going to be like for me. I don't know yet what that experience, especially if you're a first-time mom. I don't know yet what the experience of being mom is like. And so I need to make sure that I can get certain things in place for that post-delivery period, especially the first couple of months. If there are people in your life that are willing to be available to come help, for example, like to help you get a full night's sleep post-delivery, when you're up maybe every 30 minutes or I know when I was trying to breastfeed, there were times where it felt like I was up all night just watching this machine suck my breast and little drops of milk. And the sleep thing is real. And so when you're very sleep deprived, you're going to be not your clearest self. You're not going to have access to your emotional resilience, and you are not going to be as capable of seeing things in a clear perspective. So if you have a family or close friend, I mean, it's wonderful if the other partner could be that helpful and give you a night off, but that's just not always the case. So I think I'm saying this knowing that, if you have, but even if your spouse or partner is willing to do their part, sometimes you both might need a break. And so to have these conversations in advance where you have resourced certain relationships and ask them if it would be okay at certain times for you to reach out to them for help with a night's sleep, for example, or maybe it will be so that you and your partner can go out on a date and you can feel like a human that has conversations away from the newborn, and which might sound terrible to some of you, but that's a real need. If people are suddenly home and they're not interacting with adults all day, suddenly you're at home with your baby who, yes, you love, but your mind is used to spending a certain amount of emotional, intellectual, and relational energy during the day. And so if that suddenly changes, you're going to feel the drop. You're going to feel the deficit. And if you're not unaware that that is going to happen, then likely you will, what people do often is they feel that drop in their affect and their energy is low anyway, because when you've just delivered, your body has been through something traumatic and the hormones are all over the place, and I guess as they're returning to baseline, or you know, whatever's happening there, I've lost my train of thought. It's just super important that you do, prioritize these relationships where you see that you can access certain types of help, knowing yourself well enough, because everybody is individual. You know what things are more likely to get you to where you feel emotionally off kilter. And if sleep is that area, then let sleep be the area that's resourced. If nutrition is that area, which we're all, I mean, food is mood, really. So we're all affected by our nutrition. And some people are more aware of that than others. And some people experience that, you know, in a unique, like in a uniquely sensitive way, and others not as much. So just know yourself well enough to know what areas you need to resource, because if it is nutrition, one thing you may do is, you know, get together with some of your friends or you and your partner before the baby's born, see if you can cook some meals in advance and freeze them. So that will be one thing taken care of. See if there are other, or look around in your life and see who you would choose to go to if you weren't feeling 100% yourself and you've reached out to your doctor, but you're still going to need social support. So if you have a conversation in advance with like 2 or 3 people saying, I don't know, or maybe you do know, but if the case is that you don't know whether or not you're going to experience any depression post-delivery and you're concerned about that, what you can do is you have a conversation with your friend or your family member and let them know. Because I don't know how I'm going to experience it, I would like to ask you to check in on me. And when you check in on me, try to pay attention to whether or not it seems like me within the tired because my body is healing and tired because I'm not able to sleep, you know, regularly. And yet you can see when someone's there. And I think maybe most of y'all know this experience. You can also tell when someone's just a little bit off. And so when you are in relationship with that person, more often than not, and specifically women, because we read nonverbals more accurately than males do, we can tell that person's just a little bit off. Pick out those relationships in your life, the ones with the people who are the most in tune with you and who you are as a person. They're the ones that would be able to probably help you see it. Because one of the reasons it's not caught earlier is because postpartum does, I mean, for some people, it does not start always in pregnancy. So you're leading up to the delivery, you deliver your child. Some people still, even at that moment, might not have the baby blues, and they think, oh, well, this is great. I didn't even have that baby blues that a lot of people talk about. It doesn't always happen immediately after birth, and it can start as late as like up to 3 years post-pregnancy. So it is so important because that you have these conversations in advance, because when you are tired in that healing process, or say you're through that and you're back to work, well, now you're back to work, but you have this extra human in your home that needs you for every single care that it has, he or she has, and then you're running to daycare or you're running to take your child to the babysitter, and that's emotional. It's all, for many people, they give birth and then the next couple of years can sort of fly by because it's very different than they expected, which takes me to another thing that can be done during pregnancy: mindset. it's super important to ask, if you don't know what your narrative is already about who you are as a mom, or who you'll be as a mom, or what you will experience as a mom. And maybe you think, I don't have a narrative. I haven't done that. Well, you do have a narrative, and it's in your non-conscious mind if you have not put words on it. So it's there whether you put words on it or not. If you put words on it, it will help you reprogram it to one that fits what you want it to fit. So if you don't know what your narrative is, you can sit down, stream of consciousness, just start journaling about pregnancy, about becoming a mother, or, you know, being a mother, adding that to who you are already as a person. Likely, I know for myself, I was 31 when I gave birth to Ava Claire. And I had wanted to become, like, I wanted children since I was a child more than anything. And so it did not even, it's kind of like when Dr. Philippi was talking about her postpartum depression experience. It doesn't matter, you know, I was already a therapist, well versed in mental health, but also very much aware of my own mental wellness, and had been paying attention to that for years. Thought I was doing everything that I could do. Really, when I realized what happened, when I realized later what had happened, I realized that I just missed like the first 6 months. That whatever could have been a little more vivid in the first 6 months, because I was unaware that I was depressed based on the lethargy from being sleep deprived, the pull on identity, my own inner narrative about, well, as a mom, I'm supposed to be happy. I've always wanted a child. And so now I have this wonderful little girl and I love her. And yet I don't feel that as viscerally as I want to. There's so much self-judgment and criticism that comes around parenting. For some reason, I mean, now I know enough to know that it really didn't make any sense for me to criticize myself for having sort of a flat affect and not have whatever, and not having the vivid, bright moments that I thought I would have. But I also know that I set myself up for that because during the pregnancy, I only was looking at the things that would be good and beautiful. And I wouldn't even allow myself to consider the reality that it was also going to be hard and painful and confusing and anxiety provoking, just because even with the most beautiful changes in life, like giving birth to a child or getting married, they come with significant transition stress. And when you don't account for that in advance, there is a tendency to judge yourself for feeling it at all, for being overwhelmed. And then that spirals because there's shame around it, because you don't understand it, you don't like it, don't want to talk about it. And it can go on for several years. So, and that is if it's a milder case, but if it's more severe, it can grow into something called postpartum psychosis. I've had a close friend go through that. She also is in this profession, and she gave birth to her child, and the postpartum psychosis kicked in about a month later. And it rocked her world because she was not someone who'd struggled with mental health before. Personally, she was in the mental health field, but she had not personally struggled with depression or certainly any psychotic anything. And she went from her normal self to a space where she was crying a lot, noticed that she didn't care about the things that she cared about before, and wasn't caring as much as she wanted to about her child, and didn't realize still that it could be postpartum depression until it amped up to a place where she was suicidal, pretty seriously suicidal. And so that is, I mean, it can get so severe. We've all heard in the news the horror stories of mothers harming their children. My sister-in-law, after her firstborn, she's given me permission to talk about this, but she experienced, I mean, she was having these intrusive thoughts and images of herself doing violent things to her child. And she is from another country and didn't want to seek mental health help until she realized what was going on, which was that she had something serious in her body that needed to be adjusted. We feel the emotions we feel, and we have the thoughts and images we have, all as a consequence of a chemical reaction that happens within the body. So when you're significantly off, or when you're starting out just a little bit off, if you have set up that relationship with those people that are safe for you, where they would check in with you maybe once every 2 weeks or however, but it needs to be something regular. I would say if they would agree to do that for 6 months post-delivery, then that will set up a resource for you, because you're inviting them to be a mirror for you, so that you don't have to get to the extreme place before you get some help if this is going on. And if you catch it earlier, just like any other thing, the earlier you catch it, the better off, the better you are, as far as you'll get better quickly. You'll return to who you are as a human much more quickly if you address it with your doctor sooner rather than later. Also, there are some things that can set you up to be more vulnerable for postpartum. And when that's the case, it's important to talk to your doctor about it as soon as you realize that. So if you know that you have like a very high level of stress already, and you're financially stressed, and and the person you're having a child with is not going to be around to help you, or maybe they are around and they're abusive, and you don't like it and you're embarrassed about it and you don't want to talk about it. But if you don't at least let your doctor know these things are going on and that's bringing enough stress to my life that I'm concerned that when the additional stress of taking care of my child is on me as well, that it might be a little much. What do I need to do? And your healthcare provider will walk you through that. More than anything, you need to have those relationships in place. We are created, as you all know, we're created in relationship. We're born through relationship, and then we're born into the relationship of, at least the mother-child dyad, that family system. We need connection in order to see ourselves accurately at any given moment. Pregnant, post-pregnant, never pregnant, we as individuals cannot see ourselves. We have to rely on people that are close to us that we can trust when they give us feedback, letting us know that they see something is a little off. It's important that we don't take that as criticism, but we rather take it as information, take that information in and do what you need to do to get back to your usual self, which is going to include call your doctor, because you have hormonal things happening in your body that have never happened before. There are many, many you could be genetically predisposed to have depression. Also, there are people who experience their first manic episode during a pregnancy. So that's something that could also happen. One of the ways to know that you're experiencing postpartum is a tearfulness and just that pervasive sense of nothing feels like it's clicking in a way that feels satisfying. There are many resources out there because, I mean, there was even legislation I saw when I was researching for talking to y'all today. I saw there was legislation in 2016 that had to do with postpartum depression. So it's severe enough, it's serious enough, and it's real enough, and enough of a shock to people that our government's considering it and creating laws around it. So it's wise to consider it also, since you're the one that's pregnant. And if you do have your partner in the house with you, have conversations with your partner about expectations, the expectations that are there now, but also post-delivery, and have really clear communication about what's expected around the house, what you can count on with regard to their help for sleep, giving you breaks, when you're at home alone during the post-delivery period. Keep that communication open, and most importantly, do not judge yourself for what you feel. What the feeling that you have in your body is not a consequence of your thoughts. That was a lie, myth that people in my generation were taught. But feelings are emotions are energy in motion in the body. And so it's a surge of energy, whichever way your mood has gone, that feels off. That's something that's physical, but it is indicating to you there's something going on. Just like when there's physical pain, you know that something's happened wherever the physical pain is, and you pay attention to it because it's pretty clear. Well, this type of pain is really a wound to your personhood. To say it's emotional really does not cover it, because it's emotional, it's physical, it's spiritual, and it affects every relationship. So it really is like a draining of your life energy. So do what you can to try to protect yourself. Exercising is a huge help. Exercise is probably getting play, like making sure that you have self-care, whatever that looks like for you. Budget that into your life. Make sure there's some play and fun in your life, because that is very protective for depressions. And make sure that those relationships with people who you can talk to, who you can trust to look out for what's best for you and your baby. Make sure you have those conversations with them so that they know they're invited to speak to you if they notice something. And so that you know that there is someone outside of the unit in the home that will touch base and check on you and help you see things that you can't see. Dr. Philippi talked about it takes a community, or it takes a village to raise a child. It does. And we try to do it almost alone. And so it's no wonder that so many people so many mothers specifically, end up taking on so much that it's just impossible. Also, look at your expectations for yourself and if they're realistic.